To think that you can do a 300 kilo pin squat every single day and not feel it is basically foolish thinking. Obviously, there is a lot going on in that tiny little range of motion that I'm using for the pin squats, but it's very, very taxing. And I felt it today. I feel tired. I feel like I don't have it in my legs. I don't have it in my core. Whatever the structure responsible for that feeling of not feeling strong, it's fatigued, and it's not up to doing the work today. So I failed 280 today on the pin squat. Just didn't have the top end strength. I just couldn't budge the bar off the pins. Now you could automatically think to yourself, oh, his legs are tired, or my legs are tired, or whatever the case might be. But it's more than that. It's more than that, because if you think to yourself, if the quads are tired, obviously it's not going to move. But also if the core is tired and you're leaking power through there, or you're kind of deforming, from pelvis up, so your legs might be doing the work, but it's kind of like if you think you're jelly from the pelvis all the way to the bar. So it's kind of you're deforming as you are pushing into the bar, and that deformity is deregulating that central nervous, that, spinal cord is deregulating the structures around it to prevent injury. So when you're dealing with super maximal weights, there's a lot of things that could be going wrong or failing or whatever the case might be. So yesterday, after I did all that squatting business, I finished the workout with weighted sit-ups. The whole idea there is, like I've said in the past, is to make sure that my anterior core is also as strong as the posterior core. I've been doing a lot of block pulls, doing a lot of pin squatting right now. So my core is the anterior compartment, the anterior chain needs to also be strong. And so, I've felt this many times before. If you exhaust your core the day before or 2 days before, you feel weak throughout. Like the core is fundamental to anything that we do. Even though we like to think about the primary movers, we like to think about the engine in the car, the performance of that vehicle is huge. Like there are many aspects. If your transmission is wrong, you can't set really good times on the track. If your tires are wrong, if your map is not good, if the brake system is like everything is equally important. You can't just say you just need fat quads and everything else is going to take care of itself. It's not the case. You need the integrity of the whole structure to make that thing go. So to an untrained eye, you can see that and be like, oh, it's these are the quads that are tired. It's not. It's a lot of stuff going on. And, my intuition is always to try and work out the very fiber that's responsible for my poor performance. But you basically have to agree, you have to conclude that it's impossible to work out exactly the structure that is at fault, tired, or whatever the case. It is often a lot better mentally to think about systems, think about pushing, pulling, think about anterior, posterior chains. That's the kind of stuff that I like to think about. And you're trying to kind of play with your ratios between all of those, pillars, let's say, and you can try to balance those things out. But to break it down to a really fine art, to think to yourself, oh, it's the freaking vastus lateralis that's really fatigued, and that's why I can't squat today. It's really, really difficult. But this is where, auto regulation comes in. This is where you need to be honest with yourself and be like, okay, so 280 is not budging. I thought about trying it again and really kind of like smashing it, giving my all might, but there's no point in doing that. Clearly, I'm 40 kilos, some probably 50 kilos weaker than I was yesterday, and we're just going to leave it at that. You can use these pin squats. You can use some of these exercises as basically a vital sign, kind of like I do patients at the hospital. You come in, you take their pulse, blood pressure, respiration rate, temperature. You do all of those kind of vital signs, and then you go, okay, this is how unwell or well this patient is. And you categorize them from 1 to 5 as a triage category, and you kind of have a system of what's going on. In a similar fashion, you can do that with pin squats, or you can do whatever you want to do. I've heard people using all sorts of different ways to quantify their fatigue level, or whatever you want to call it, CNS fatigue, muscular fatigue. You can do it many different ways to work out, okay, this is how far off I am from from my most optimal. So a pin squat is a great idea because, well, you're handling maximum weight, but the range of motion is very, very small. And I would say the muscular fatigue is very, very low. And depending on how things feel, you can kind of work out, okay, today, this is what's going to happen in the workout. So because I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, no volume today. Another element to all of this is, and this is where it gets really, really wishy-washy and it's more of an art than anything. The gym and what we do inside it is just one tiny element of our life. So I'm heading into a night shift, and historically, when I'm heading into a night shift, my body is weird. I feel tired from the moment I wake up that day. So I'm going into a night shift tonight. I've had a normal sleep throughout the night last night, but I woke up feeling tired. It's almost like my body knows what's coming, and there are hormonal cascades that are happening in my body that will basically make me want to fall asleep around 4 o'clock this afternoon, where I'm going to have to go to sleep again for an hour or something, a bit of a nap, and then go into a night shift. So that also plays an impact because I feel tired today. This is the thing. I could be feeling tired from what I did yesterday, the day before, the pin squats, all the work that I've done before. You can always put that into the basket as well. But I know for a fact, removing training from everything, even 10 years ago when I was nursing and doing night shifts, that first night shift, that day leading up to it, I feel tired the whole day. I feel lethargic. I don't feel up for it. Whether it's psychological, physiological, I'm not sure, but there's an element of that. And so you obviously put the training that I've done in the last few days, and then you have yourself a suboptimal feeling. Maybe cortisol level is really high because I don't like night shifts, and so my stress level is a little bit higher. I don't particularly enjoy doing night shifts, and so maybe that's stressing me intrinsically. That is a higher baseline level of cortisol than I would usually have if I didn't have a night shift. A lot of stuff goes in. This is where auto-regulation is so important. This is where taking vital signs for your patients is very important. You can't just be like, oh, how you going? Yeah, I feel good or bad. Like you need to have some quantifiable measurements where you can kind of work out whether this person is good or bad. And I feel you can do the same stuff with training. How does 100 feel? How does 200 feel? How does 250 feel? And in any exercise. And you go by that. Layered on top of all of that is also the mind is smokes and screening smokes, whatever the term is. The mind also likes to play tricks on you. So you might have no reason for feeling crap, feeling tired. It's just a mental fog. Yes, it is basically impossible to work out exactly what's going on. These things get better as you continue to live on this planet and you continue to train and spend more and more time with whatever endeavor that you are concerning yourself with. It gets better. You kind of pick up patterns. You learn more about your body, about your psyche, about who you are as a person and what makes you tick and go and whatever. And you kind of work out those things as you go along. Why I felt 280, who knows? But I felt 280. That is the important thing. That is my experience. That is my RPE. For whatever reason, the RPE was very, very high today in all of the things that I did. And so you go, okay, I'm not going to do lots of back off work. I'm not going to do this, that, the other. Maybe do some front squatting and then call it a day. But the very next thought that I have is, what is the structure that I'm going to do moving forward with these pin squats? Obviously, it's super maximum weight. If you talk to people, they say don't do that every day, obviously. It's not a good idea. My process is I'm going to auto-regulate it. I'm not going to say every single day I'm going to do 300 pin squat. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm going to go to a heavy pin squat and then go to about my normal workout as I usually would. So have an honest approach to how I feel. Take all of those things that I mentioned into consideration and then make a call. Make an educated guess and make a call. Obviously, all of my training is by feel. Everything I do is basically, my experience, what I know today, how I feel, all of these vital signs I take into consideration. I make a decision today. I think pin squats are great. I think they will have benefits not only psychologically. Psychology is definitely one. I think that's undeniable that handling heavy weight will make everything else feel good and it will give you more confidence in the rest of that. So the psychological stuff is not even a thing for me. The physiological stuff is going to be harder to explain because of, number one, psychology, but also is because a lot of these fundamental understandings that we have about training and attaining strength will let us to believe that you need more range of motion, you need less weight. 70-80% of your max is where you should be living. You shouldn't be living at 150% of your max for tiny ranges of motion. That is kind of what is believed today by the traditional thinking. However, there are some big performers in history. Paul Anderson, namely, is the number one person that I kind of heard about doing this, who have had great success doing that. Was it studied or not? No. But I take that anecdote from that man and I will trial it and make a decision for me. I don't need Harvard.com to release a said research article for me to start believing. That's where I stand on this. Basically, it's a recurrent thought process. It's a current opinion that I always have. When it comes to this strength training business that we're concerning ourselves with, I don't think it's a heavy science. It is a very, very wishy-washy science. It is more an art. And when it comes to art, you look at artists and you take their opinion about how you should progress forward. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.